Hi everyone, it's Michelle. Welcome back. So today I thought I would do another installment of what I've been reading, and it has been a couple months since I did this. So rather than go over everything, I'm just going to kind of divide it in half because there's a lot of books, and I don't want the video, first of all, I don't want the video to be too long, and second of all, there is a group of them that kind of fit in a category, and I'm going to cover those in a different video. And I'm just going to talk today about 5 books that I read that, well, some I enjoyed, most of these I actually liked. So, but these are just sort of the general topic books that I read. So let's jump right in and get started. The first one, and these are not in any particular order, but the first one is Tales from the Bed, which is a memoir written by Jennifer Estes, told to her sister. So this is a great book. The whole title is Tales from the Bed on Living, Dying, and Having It All. This is an older book that I picked up at my local used bookstore. I have a used bookstore that's close to me, and I don't shop there a lot because most of the store is mass market paperback, used mass market paperback, and I just don't like the format of mass market paperbacks. So I only shop the little sections that they have in the store that aren't mass market, and I found this there. So I'll read you a brief part of the synopsis. So Jennifer Estes, this is a memoir, so true story. Jennifer Estes is a woman on the verge. She's about to launch her own company. She's looking buff and dating vigorously. She's driving in the fast lane with the top down. At the age of 35, she dreams of falling in love and starting a family, and then she notices muscle twitches in her legs. Walking down a city block feels exhausting. At first, doctors write off her symptoms to stress, but she is quickly diagnosed with ALS, a fatal brain disease that is absolutely untreatable for those of you who know about ALS. So this is her story about her diagnosis and then, you know, what follows. And Katie Couric wrote the foreword in this book. This was a great book if you have been touched by ALS or a terminal disease in your family, a terminal illness with a family member. This is her story and how her and her sister got close and the things that happened, and it was a really great read. This is a pretty old book. I'm sure it's probably still in print. You can probably still get it. I'm sure you can get it at your library. 2004 was when this was written. So I enjoyed reading this. It was a sad story because you know what's going to happen, but it was a great story about the bond between sisters and family and friends and that kind of thing. So highly recommend it. Okay, now I have a random grouping of books. The first one is called I'm Still Here. This was a French book that has been translated. The French title is Je suis là. I enjoyed this book a lot. I'm going to read the synopsis so I don't give too much away, but Elsa is spending her 30th birthday in the hospital, in the bed where she's lain for 5 months after a terrible mountain climbing accident. She's unable to speak, see, or move. She appears to be in an irreversible coma, and her family is facing the devastating reality that it might be time to turn off her life support. They don't realize that in the past few weeks, she has regained partial consciousness. She knows where she is. She can hear everyone talking around her, but she has no way to tell them she's still there. So she's listening to these people talk about what are we going to do with her. It's, you know, the doctors are telling them she's not going to get any better than this. Is it time to turn off life support? And she's hearing all this. But she can't communicate with them what she's, you know, that she can at least hear them. This, by the way, is fiction. Tybalt, which is a man's name, Tybalt, I don't know how you pronounce it, is in the same hospital visiting his brother who was just injured in an accident that killed 2 young girls. Needing refuge from his family's turmoil, he looks for an empty room and stumbles upon Elsa. Deciding she won't mind, he settles down in her room to enjoy the quiet, but the silence becomes oppressive and awkward. He can hardly believe this beautiful stranger isn't just sleeping. So he begins to speak to her, never expecting an answer. And so he starts visiting her regularly. You know, he's talking to her, and so in the story, she's hearing what he's saying, and she's trying to communicate with him, but she can't. So that's what the story is about. Sort of his her getting to know him, his talking to her, you know, him developing a need to have her in his life, and then her family is there as well, you know, with the decision about to turn off her life support or not. So this is that story. I really enjoyed this book. I read it so quickly because I kept thinking, oh my gosh, she's alive and they're going to turn off her life support. And I'm not going to give away what happens in the book, but this is a really great story if you like those kinds of stories. It is fiction. I think you can get it in your local bookstore. Like I said, it is a French novel that was translated to English. So I really, really enjoyed this. I think this is a relatively new book. Let's see. 2015, so last year. I really enjoyed this. Again, I'm still here. Oh, I should tell you who it's by. Oh, I can't, it's a French name. I'll put it below. Avit is the last name, A-V-I-T, I believe. And I can't read the writing, so I'm not quite sure what the first name is. But again, loved it. I would give this book I would give 4 stars to. I really enjoyed reading it. This book I think I would give 4 stars to as well. I really enjoyed the story. I loved the characters' development. Not that the characters weren't flawed, but I loved the character development, and I loved how we learned about her, how we learned about her family, how the story was told in an interesting way. Okay, I also read 9 Women, One Dress. This is a new book as well. This book was not what I expected. So basically, this book is by Jane Rosen. A beautiful dress holds a little bit of magic in it. Let me see if I can find a brief. So this dress instantly crowned the must-have dress of the season. That we follow the dress as it flits from the runway to the ladies' dress department at Bloomingdale's, and from there in and out of the lives of 9 very different women. So this dress is sort of making the rotation between these 9 women, and it's these women's story, and you know how the dress is involved in that story. So I expected this book to be much more about fashion and you know, fashion, the fashion industry, the fashion world, and there's a little bit of that there, but it's more it's a very light read. I will say that it's just like sort of a light summer read. There's a little bit of a love story here. There's a little bit of you're trying to figure out some things that happened here. There's a couple of love stories actually in this book. And it all sort of circles around this one dress. It's comical. There's parts of it that are very comical. There's parts of it that are, you know, very touching. But it's a very simple story. It's a little bit predictable and that kind of thing. But if you love sort of New York, if you like, you know, fashion and the little black dress and like sort of New York gossip kind of things, you will like this book. I give it 3 stars. It's okay for me to read. I didn't want to put it down, but it wasn't like a gripping page turner or anything. Again, just a simple like beach read. I also read Ann Tyler's Vinegar Girl. So this is part of the Hogarth Shakespeare series. For those of you who aren't familiar, Hogarth is taking some Shakespeare plays and having current authors, write a retelling of it. So this is Ann Tyler's retelling of The Taming of the Shrew. And it's called Vinegar Girl. I was kind of curious. I started with this one. This is not the first one. There are a couple before this that I will go back and read, but I don't have a loving relationship with Shakespeare. I took Shakespeare in college and struggled with it terribly. But the thought of taking those stories, which I wanted to get them more. And maybe today if I read them, it would be different. But, you know, as a 19 or 20-year-old in college, it was just, I didn't get it sometimes. And so to have a modern day retelling of some of those things that are supposed to be brilliant works, I thought was a great idea. And this is Taming of the Shrew. And I was wondering how they were going to do it, because if you've read Taming of the Shrew, you know this, there's this sort of vibrant, powerful, not powerful, but she's, she is not she wants to be independent. She's a very strong female who, you know, gives herself to this man, kneels down to him and does what she's supposed to do for back then. And I was wondering how they're going to do that in modern day. And I think Ann Tyler did a really great job of that. Now, do I think this story would stand on its own if I wasn't looking for the tie to The Taming of the Shrew? I'm not sure. So, like, the reason I enjoyed this is because it was a modern day telling of that story, and I kept thinking back to that story, The Taming of the Shrew. So, I'll read you the blurb, though. So, Kate Batista feels stuck. How did she end up running the house and home for her eccentric scientist father and uppity, pretty young sister? Plus, she's always in trouble at work. Her preschool charges adore her, so she's like an assistant teacher in a preschool. But the parents don't always appreciate her unusual opinions and her forthright manner with their children. She doesn't have children of her own, and she gets, you know, she speaks very honestly to the children, and parents don't usually do that in some circumstances, and that gets her in trouble at school. Dr. Batista, her dad, has his own problems. After years in the academic wilderness, he is on the verge of a breakthrough. His research could help millions of people. There's only one problem. His brilliant young lab assistant is about to be deported, and without him, all will be lost. So perhaps you can think about that and wonder what's going to happen. When Dr. Batista cooks up an outrageous plan that will enable him to stay in the country, he's relying, as usual, on Kate to help him. She is furious. This time he's really asking too much. But will she be able to resist the two men's touchingly ludicrous campaign to bring her around? So this is a really funny story. It's just sort of like, if you take it word for word, you'll just be mortified that people would do this. But when you read the story for what it is, it's really kind of funny. So I did like it. I would give this, it's not quite 4 stars for me. It's a little better than a 3-star book, not quite all the way to a 4-star book, but I liked how Ann Tyler retold The Taming of the Shrew, and I thought it's a good read. And I'm going to go back and read the other. There's 2, I think, that have already been released, and there's another one coming. There's several more coming, but I think there's 2 before this. And I think one is, the Margaret Atwood one is just coming out now, so more to come on that. And lastly, the last one I'm going to talk about today is a Neil Gaiman book. You guys know I love the author Neil Gaiman. This is his book, The View from the Cheap Seats, which is, it's nonfiction. So this is a compilation of some speeches that Neil Gaiman has given, the forewords he's written for many, many books, and just, I think there's a few chapters on like his thoughts on some things and that kind of thing. So this was an amazing read for me. I'll read a little bit of the blurb. An enthralling collection of nonfiction pieces on a myriad of topics, from art and artists to dreams, myths, and memories, to comics, films, and literature, observed in award-winning New York Times best-selling author Neil Gaiman's probing, amusing, and distinctive style. So if you like Neil Gaiman, you will enjoy this. Also, if you're a science fiction fan, if you are a speculative fiction fan, if you are a graphic novel person, if you love reading fantasy, if you love those types of movies as well, this is a compilation of the speeches he's given around those topics and the forewords he's written for many, many books that are in those genres. And some of the things that it starts out way back. He talks a lot about his history on reading, his growing up as a child, like what he was addicted to from a reading perspective, and how he sort of came to be who he was. And so you learn a lot about him in this book, and you learn a lot about other authors in those genres and the history in those genres. And I came away from reading this book with a long, long list of authors that I want to read and books that I want to read. Many of them books I think I have read in the past, but I don't remember enough about them. And when he talks about them, I want to go back and reread them. So I loved this. I will say it's a big chunk of a book, but because each chapter is a different intro to a book, or a different speech that he gave, that kind of thing. You know, you could read this while reading something else, because it doesn't necessarily have to be read all at once. Although I did approach it from that perspective. I just jumped in and was addicted. I will also say, if you enjoy audiobooks, Neil Gaiman reads his own audiobooks, and I listened to part of this on audiobook and loved it. I love listening to him, but when he's so passionate about the way he feels about these subjects, that listening to him like talk or read it is just amazing, and I highly recommend it. But loved this book, and like I said, now I have a long list of books and authors that I need to read because of how he spoke of them and how he talked about how they influenced him, and even in his childhood and that kind of thing. So love it. And even on the back of this, there's so many people who talk about him and, you know, his influence and that kind of thing. I just love it. I highly recommend this. Like I said, if you like graphic novels, science fiction, speculative fiction, fantasy, any of that, or if you just like his books, this will introduce you to the books that he loved and the books and authors that influenced him, which for me is huge, and I can't wait to dig into some of those. So Neil Gaiman's The View from the Cheap Seats. And I think this is pretty new, recently published as well. 2014, is that true? A lot of what's in here has been published for a long time, because it's the forwards in books and speeches and that kind of thing. So I think this book was published this year, 2016, but there's some copyright stuff in here because a lot of this stuff is previous speeches and, like I said, book forwards. But it is long. It is over 500 pages. So, but if you love Neil Gaiman, read it. Loved it. This was probably my favorite of all of them. This is a 5-star book for me because I save my 5 stars. I think I've mentioned this before, for books that really sort of inspire me and introduce me to new things and broaden my scope of understanding of literature or genres or authors and that kind of thing. And so this definitely for me gets 5 stars. Like I said, this won't be for everybody, but if you are a Neil Gaiman fan and those kind of genre fan, you got to read it. You have to. So that is it for today. Hopefully you guys found this helpful. I will be talking about another group of books next week. I will do the rest of them and catch you guys up, and then hopefully get on a schedule where I'm visiting with you once a month about my books. Maybe a little more often. We'll see. Please let us know in the comments if you've read any of these and what your thoughts were on them. Also, if you have a favorite book that you've read recently, or one that moved you or introduced you to other books, I love reading those kind of books as well. Please mention that in the comments. That is it for today. I hope everybody's having a fantastic day, and I will talk to you all again soon.